Don't eat pigs, cause they're made from hell. Eat the nasty butcher man.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the roundup for June 2021 with the OiNK Blog. Classic comics in real time. As you'll see, there's a new tagline for the blog. This month we actually have 4 real-time read-through comics. We've got 2 issues of OiNK, the first issue of Jurassic Park from 1993 and issue 4 of Visionaries from 1988. There was a review of a comic which has been released in the last few years by an OiNK contributor. And on top of that, there was a new bit of media coverage for OiNK, or in particular a piece of OiNK merchandise, some bits of news. And at the end of this video, we'll look forward to next month and see what is definitely coming to the blog as far as comic reviews are concerned and anything else. There's a little bit of a tease I want to give you for the winter time as well. First up was OiNK number 4. Now, this issue actually contains my very, very favourite page out of all of the entire OiNK run, all 68 regular issues, books, specials, the whole heap. There's the first panel on the screen by Ian Jackson, of course, it'll have to be him. And it's a spoof of Jaws. Jaws being my favourite film. And actually I feel even older. I feel old enough at the best of times these days, but I feel even older when I'm reading this comic, in particular this issue. Jaws 86, as it's called. That strip was actually created and published a whole year before the 4th and final Jaws film was actually released. That's how old that is. On the blog, as you know, there are highlights every month. You'll see a few little strips and then some little panels to give you an idea of what's inside the issue. For the first time on the blog, you can catch a glimpse of Hadrian Vial, Pete's Pup, and Billy Bang. Full strips there for you to read. The next comic, quite obviously after issue 4 of OiNK, was then issue 5. This issue really celebrated the fact that they were now getting contributions in from readers, drawings, jokes, letters, things like that there. And this issue really did celebrate the fact that it was proving a hit with the target audience, who, remember, were precocious as far as the marketing was concerned. The big main feature of it is the unfair fun fair. Remember those textbooks, choose your own adventure books? Those? This was OiNK's take on these. I'm not going to give anything away about it. It's on there, it's on the blog, it's 3 pages. Go give it a go and see if you can help Barrie the Butcher escape the unfair fun fair. And those words in OiNK comic, Barrie the Butcher in the unfair fun fair, should give you a bit of a hint, but go ahead, you'll enjoy it. Patrick Gallagher, one of the 3 creators of OiNK, one of the 3 editors, very kindly gave me some background information on the Mary Lighthouse strip, which looked as if it had been edited slightly. Very kindly, he gave me the story behind that. Issue 5 will also show you for the first time on the site, Mr. Big Nose by Jeremy Banks. For a lot of us at that age, this was our first introduction to really surreal humour, something which had really come to the fore as OiNK progressed, particularly in Jeremy's work. And also there is Tony Husband's Horace Ugly-Faced Watkins. On the surface of it, anybody watching this for the first time might think, oh, a cliched comic character, he's ugly, so that's what the joke's going to be every week. No. This is OiNK. This was created as a reaction to cliched comics and comic rules and everything like this. Appropriately enough, the strip had more to it than was just visible on the surface. That character was key to my own development as a person. Moving on then to issue 4 of Visionaries. This came out in last month in 1988. This is actually the penultimate issue, and that is heartbreaking because this is a phenomenal issue and a fantastic story. To use a TV series metaphor, the writer, Jerry Conway, that was brought on, he's the new showrunner. And he was the one brought in to really develop and be the head writer and develop the series over a period of time, like Simon Furman would have been with Transformers in the UK. It's really starting to develop the actual characters. They are human beings. They're not just good guys and bad guys happen to have magical powers and they go and fight. There's an awful lot more to it. The world itself is an awful lot more grittier and more realistic than the cartoon. People are in poverty because of this new age of magic, which, you know, was such a phenomenal, fantastic thing with the TV marketing for the toys. But really, this comic takes it and says, if this actually happened, if science just stopped, went back to an age of magic, it would be devastating. The story itself, though, it asks kind of deep philosophical for a toy licensed comic anyway, about identity and personal choice. So it's really worth, if you can track down any issue of the UK Visionaries comic, get issue 4. Now, I'm lifting this up here, it's all falling apart. Issue 1 is falling apart, so I'll just hold up the cover. Issue 1 of Jurassic Park UK from Dark Horse International. I've had quite a few people get in touch this past month and say there was a comic. So the first review is called Adapting the Adaptation, because really this is the comic book adaptation of the movie, which was an adaptation of Michael Crichton's novel. The comics team that they assembled for the adaptation of this film is mind-blowing. At the time, I wouldn't have known who these people were, but now looking back on these early issues, my word, Walter Simonson, Gil Kane, George Perez, Tom Smith, John Workman, that's some team. Now, I've never been a fan of comic book adaptations of movies. Bad experiences. that's a bit over dramatic. But the Transformers, the movie, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and other ones I read as a kid, the adaptations left me kind of cold. This, however, could be changing my mind. At least one chapter in. There are examples of dialogue maybe which came from an earlier version of the script for the movie, which interestingly are verbatim from the novel by Michael Crichton. But it's also interesting to see the changes. There are scenes just sort of moved about and things, I guess, here, just to make it read better and flow better in a different medium. There's a behind the scenes feature, part 1 of it, and some lovely retro ads in there for some Jurassic Park merchandise, and a comics checklist for Dark Horse International. See which ones you can remember collecting yourself. As I mentioned at the start of this video, there was another comics review which isn't a real-time read-through. It's of I say new comic, but it came out a few years ago, Derek the Troll. This is from Lou Stringer. Lou published this originally in 2016. He has then re-released it. I think he had found quite a few more issues, so he was selling them again. Now, I think by the time you see this video, they will have sold out, but who knows? Hopefully it'll pop up again. But the review, again, has a couple of little highlights, well worth your time going and having a look at. Now, there were a couple of interesting bits of news this month. The first being Kev F. Sutherland, a fantastic OiNK contributor who came to the comic for the second half of its run. He has started releasing his own weekly podcast called Comic Cuts, the Panel Show. It's a great setup. Each guest will bring with them one comic panel. This can be from any comic, from any era. Then Kev and the other guest will describe this to the listener. And then when you're listening to it, you got to try and work out what comic it's from. The banter is fantastic. They're very, very funny podcasts. And in July, David Leitch, Psycho Grand's dad, will be also appearing. Knowing David and Kev, the two of them together, that's going to be funny. Also, last month, there was another news article, which later on became a full write-up about the latest issue of Retro Gamer, believe it or not, with Sonic there. The reason being, a pig pal by the name of David Crooks has written all about the OiNK computer game. Did you know there was one? There was one. It's actually a chat with John Williams, the coder of the actual game. So he discusses the creation of it, the design, and any, if any, interaction with the OiNK team. So it's quite interesting. I did play the OiNK computer game, but much later in life. We're talking maybe 10, 15 years ago. My first comic was issue 14 of OiNK. And then about 6 years later, my first magazine, as I sort of started moving away from comics, my first magazine was also issue 14 of Commodore Format in the end of 1991, I think, 91, 92. Actually, I have it here. There you go. That was my first issue of Commodore Format, 1991. I was getting Commodore 64 for Christmas that year, so I started buying this a few months in advance and getting all hyped up and collecting the cover games. What I didn't know until much later on in life, issue 2 of that had a cover tape with a game on it called Pigtails. Fast forward 10-15 years ago, I thought I'm going to buy a Commodore 64 again and collect it. But I was starting to read through the Commodore Format's issue 2, Pigtails, and I was about to flick through the instructions. I thought, I'll get round to playing at some stage, when I noticed the name Rubbish Man. It was the OiNK game. On the magazine cover and inside, they couldn't call it OiNK. I don't know why. I'll try and find out. It is going to be covered on the blog at a later stage as we go through the real-time read-through of OiNK. But when you loaded the game up, it said OiNK, and it was the OiNK computer game. There was Uncle Pig. Now, it's very, very little to do with the actual comic. It plays well, though. It did get good reviews at the time in some of the computer magazines. But as an OiNK fan, I was disappointed because it's got very, very little to do with the comic. Again, we'll go into that in more depth in the future, but you can go out now, well, around the time this video is new, go to shops and buy it. The magazine is £6.50, but if you order it from Future Publishing's website, it's only, I think, £5.20, including postage. That's how I got it myself. So if this video is even quite old, you should still be able to order it from their website.
Who eats pigs? 'Cause they're made from ham.
Let's round things up with a look forward to next month and something I want to hint at. It's going to come up in the blog in the winter time. But first, in August, issue 6 of OiNK. I'm really looking forward to this. There comes a time in every comic's life, I think, or magazine's life, or even a TV show's life, where one of those early editions or episodes, everything seems to click. You know, there's always promise, and it's always sort of finding its place, and then it just clicks. And this is the issue, from what I remember from the last time I read these, about 7 years ago. This is the issue that all clicks in place. Also next month, there are 2 issue 7s. Now, you'll spot this one here. It says not for sale. Why? You'll find out next month. That's the summer special, by the way. In the first year of the comic, there would be no actual separate summer special. This is the actual summer issue. So, of course, it's covered in ice. The very final issue of Visionaries. It will be here as well. Oh, look at the back. There's an advert for another comic that you might see at some stage on the blog. And issue 2 of Jurassic Park. It's in much better condition than my issue 1. Oh, please don't screw this up. Please keep it going with a really great chapter 2. I never thought I would enjoy a movie adaptation in comic form, but so far I am. And now, what is this about the winter time? On the previous blog, there were 3 comics. Now, they're all held together by, well, they're held together by the same team, but the head of that team is one man, Barrie Tomlinson, a legendary editor back in the days of IPC and Fleetway, and an absolute gentleman. I spoke to him a few times. There are 3 titles of his that were all fortnightly. I'm going to cover them all at the same time. So the Barrie Tomlinson trilogy. But what 3 comics of mine as a kid did I collect that were created by Barrie? I will let you in next month's video. Yes, I will let you in on next month's video because the first one will be appearing in September. I'll let you know next month then what the 3 are. Don't forget, I'm also on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. There's a channel right here on YouTube with all these monthly episodes. And there's a direct email if you want to get in touch as well. So that's it. I hope you're enjoying all this lovely weather. I'm about to clear off into the countryside for a week to look after a cat. So I have a lovely time ahead. I hope you do too. See you next month, pig pals. Take care.
Who eats pigs? 'Cause they're made from ham. Eat the nasty butcher man. Pigs in daytime, pigs at night. If you eat oink, you'll be alright, cause people know that you're okay. See, the pigs are here to stay. Don't eat pigs, cause they're made from ham.